This is the city we call our own. These are the stories of the people we call our neighbors. This is the heartbeat of our hometown. Naperville, this is Real Talk. Hey, welcome back to Naperville Real Talk. This is the podcast where we feature all things Naperville, what makes it such a great town to live, play, and work in. And this is our monthly market update for the month of November 2023. My name is Chris Grano. I'm with Keller Williams, and my guest, as always, is Mr. Todd Gosden with Keller Home Loans. Todd, how are you?
How are you? November, what happened?
Oh, my God.
That's all I can say.
I know.
Oh, my goodness.
I would be remiss to say, if I didn't say, that we're broadcasting live from the Keller Home Loan Studios here at Enclave in downtown Naperville. We love being at Enclave, right?
We love Enclave. Christmas decorations out. We're 42 days away from the big day. How about that?
A lot of good things going on.
Beautiful lights out. Get out and enjoy.
But we still have kind of fall, spring weather right now.
We have something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but
it.
it's beautiful to be
I'll
outside right now.
So we got a lot to cover today. Okay, so we're heading into the winter market, right?
Yes.
We've coming out of a crazy couple of years, and so I want to kind of catch up everybody on what's happening. Are things slowing down? Are things crashing? What's good advice for buyers? What's good advice for sellers? So I wanted to start out with a really interesting conversation today, and I'm sure it's one that you probably have a lot in your career.
Okay.
And it's this idea of, is it better to buy a house, be a homeowner? Is it better to be a renter? And
oh my,
for most people, they probably say, well, everybody kind of knows it's better to be a homeowner. But there's this trend, and I don't know if you're on the TikToks.
It's more than a trend.
Yeah, it's a big trend.
It's a big trend.
And especially on, you get these social media influencers and kind of, everybody likes to say something controversial. That's what gets you clicks.
Always.
Right? And so one of the big ones right now is like, buying a house is for suckers, especially at 7%, 8% interest rates, right? And so I had one of those conversations pop up today, and I walked this gentleman through the most detailed math that I've ever done on this equation. A lot of times you kind of do napkin math, right?
Yeah.
But I spent some time and went through average homeowner maintenance costs and inflation on those things. And I mean, just everything you can think of, increase in taxes, increase in insurance, right? All these things to try to really paint a clear picture.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, even with his greatest scenario of, well, I'm going to take what would have been my down payment, I'm going to invest it in the market, and I'm going to get 8%, and you're doing this and this and that, still came out with the best case scenario for him, right? The best case scenario is that the homeowner's net worth was over 50% more in this best case scenario for renters than the renter. And the reality is, we know that homeowners have 40 times the net worth on average than renters. Can you see any way to make this magic math work for renters?
Yes. Well, I don't think there's magic math unless you just show them. And obviously, if you've been around long enough in life, you know that this is what the market does, number one. Number two is that the market is not predictable. If it was, that we would all not be working likely. Yeah. I think the other conversation I've had with many who have had the same idea was one person said, listen, I'm not going to get rich investing in real estate. I said, you don't want to be rich. That means you're going to work the rest of your life. What you want to be is wealthy. So you choose what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And those who are wealthy are the ones that typically own all the real estate. And so regardless of what somebody may think, there's so much data that I can show that is completely opposite to the contrary of whoever you might be speaking to. The reality is, I want something that's going to appreciate. I want something that somebody else wants, so it does continue to appreciate. We're likely in a storm where we're seeing the highs of the mortgage rates, and locally we'll probably see rates going low over the next 6 to 8 months. We also have this idea of that, oh my gosh, the market may crash. No, it's not. We have the average household is $274,000 in equity. Yeah. We are at the lowest level of short sales and foreclosures ever. So investing in real estate, if you were to buy the home today, this is always the conversation. Well, should I buy today? If I could buy 6 investment properties today, I would, because if I can cash flow positive in my home or my rental today, when the rates go down, I'm going to be super happy.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that says if you find the house you love, you can't refinance it later.
Absolutely.
So there is no win to that conversation. I don't care what anybody says mathematically. I just believe that people who are truly looking for wealth will invest in real estate, always.
And here's the thing too, right? We can talk, I think a lot of times when we see these TikToks and whatever, it's a lot of theory. It's a lot of, well, if I do it this way and if everything works out. Now I showed in that scenario, even with your theory, the homeowner still comes out ahead. But I said, okay, well, let's say, but even let's say you held to your theory 100%.
Yeah.
The reality is people don't. So another stat I'll give you, some of our viewers, listeners may be familiar with the Ramsey Solutions Organization, Dave Ramsey, big, get out of debt guy, but they've also done some other financial research.
That's right.
And one of the big studies that they did was called the National Study of Millionaires. Now you can think, having $1 million net worth, is that enough? Is that not enough?
Yeah, right.
That doesn't really matter.
Right.
That's just what they used as their marker.
That's right.
And over 10,000 people with $1 million net worth or more were surveyed. And the vast, vast majority of them, almost 100%, said that their residence, many of which had paid it off by that point, was responsible for a large portion of their net worth. So the simple fact of forced savings by investing in home over your life will build your net worth. Whereas you can say you're going to be super disciplined and, invest on the side if you don't own a home. But the reality is that's not how human behavior works.
Never has, as long as they've been keeping that data.
Right.
People just don't inherently put money away the way they did maybe 60, 70, 80 years ago, potentially the old mattress, if you will. But it is the easiest, fairest way to say that I can count on something that is continued to escalate. Even going through the great crash of, not even crash, probably the great housing recession of 2007, 8, and 9, every house that was underwater has come back to be above water.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And this was as of 2 years ago. This is before the market really took off. So, I think there's just a lot to say when it comes to looking at real estate. And like that, or the market, or anything else you want to talk about, everything has its bumps along the way.
Of course.
But if you look at the data, dating back, there's been nothing been more profitable than real estate.
Yeah. Well, and on average, 4% appreciation over the last 40, 50 years. And taking into account 07 through 09 and the last couple of years.
That's right.
Because all we did in the last couple of years with this crazy appreciation was get us right back on schedule.
Well, and I would even suggest that we'll probably see a higher growth number year over year than what we've seen in the past, just because we are running such a shortage in homes, dating clear back to the 70s, and not keeping up with the population. But then you also have the idea of more buyers than sellers.
Yeah.
So you may see that number tick up to 5 to 5.1% a year. Okay, that's great guaranteed money, and you get to live in it?
Right.
Okay, that's a great deal.
And the biggest thing, too, that people forget is, aside from small increases in interest rate, increase in taxes and insurance, your monthly payment, let's say you have a 30-year loan, other than those small increases, doesn't change.
Right.
So you have stability in your house payment, whereas rent goes up every year. Okay. And when I have my house, as long as I pay my bills on time, nobody can say, sorry, I'm not renewing your lease. I'm going to sell it. There's all kinds of instability built in. And this is none of this, as you know, is to like harp on renters. Listen, in my opinion, renting is patience, right? You're getting yourself into a position to be able to buy.
That's right.
We talk to buyers all the time.
Absolutely.
That are, hey, I'm working on my down payment. I'm paying my debts down, right? Lots of things that they're doing to get ready to buy, always though with that goal of buying.
That's right.
Now, I'll give just one kind of caveat. There's a few, types of people that I would say maybe renting is a smarter choice at least for a season, right? And that would be if you're somebody particularly military, right? And so if you're active duty military and you're moving all around, you're maybe in one place for 3 years or less, right? I'm a little risk averse, so there might be some agents out there who would tell you, hey, buy a house in South Carolina and then rent it out when you move to California, and then maybe buy one there and rent that out. That's fine. Some people might say that. I'm very risk averse. I would personally say Just be patient, right? Because if you're going to try to sell homes like that in 3 years or less, that's where you might not get the appreciation. You might, even just the fees that you have to pay. So that situation, maybe I would say rent, or if you're traveling full time for work, maybe rent for a season, but you can't make that a lifelong strategy.
Nope. Couldn't agree more.
Right.
Nothing more solid than investing in real estate, in my opinion.
So otherwise we wouldn't do this podcast, right?
Technically that would be correct. We could talk about something else.
All right. So let's bring it local.
Okay.
I want to get a couple things about here in Naperville. So the first half of the year, we kind of had a little bit of a plateau in the appreciation. And it was interesting. So, I mean, from January through July, June, the average single family home in Naperville didn't really increase in value. Now that's going back over 12 months, or taking 12-month average. Hovered right around that 600,000. However, the latter half of the year, again, taking back that previous 12 months into account just for seasonality averages, now we're up at 625. So we had kind of a pause and then right back up. I mean, so year over year in Naperville, we're up 7%.
That's the way the market
Pretty good,
works.
right? We were talking about 4 or 5% being good, being average.
That's right.
7% Naperville. I'll tell you another suburb that's doing really well, Plainfield.
Yeah.
Is up over 8% year over year. Really growing suburb. But it's all we've talked on the podcast before about how localized all this is.
Very hyper local.
Right? So Naperville 7%, Plainfield up 8. It's actually like 8.7%. Romeoville, nearby suburb, that had a lot of growth in the last 5 years.
Yep.
Really kind of quieted down over the last year. About 2.2% growth.
How about that?
Right? So all within a stone's throw of each other, heartbeat, right? But it's really important that you look at local data when you're talking about this, right?
Local data is everything. I think that sometimes people forget that the Midwestern region of the country is one of the most affordable areas in the country, number one.
Right.
Number two, Chicagoland, based on diversity, both in people and in businesses, always seems to weather the storm very, very well. Yep. And you can look at that statistically going way, way back. So I think that you have to stay hyper local, because even in the conversations I have, I can speak nationally, but I always have to remind everybody that may not be here locally.
Yeah.
We just have to re-examine that. So the things you read all the time in social media, the things you may hear on TV may not be to your specific area. You just need to be really careful that your mind doesn't start wandering because you hear something in Boise, Idaho went down 20%.
That's right.
Well, the news was they're up 60, so they're fine.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so they're doing just great, right? So I think it's very important to realize that where you get your information is as important as anything.
And then time of year plays in, right? And there's always been a bit of a seasonality in real estate.
Yeah.
And we're kind of returning to that after kind of the wonky COVID years there. I think it's a tough conversation with sellers right now, and we're in the fall, getting towards the end of the year. Days on market are up, right? Yep. So the average home's taking a little bit longer to sell.
Yep.
Here in Naperville and many other suburbs in Chicagoland. The inventory is down, but the demand is down a little bit as well.
Which is not a bad thing.
Right
now. It needs to find some rhythm.
So a couple things that make me think about in the wintertime, buying and selling. So number one, I like to look at the winter as a really good time to buy and sell for a couple different reasons.
Yeah.
Tell you why for sellers.
Okay. I know
So,
why you're going to say why, but please tell everybody who's listening.
So a couple things for sellers. Number one, there's no looky-loos, right? Everybody who wants to buy in the winters actually wants to buy.
Very serious.
Yeah. They have reasons to.
As are sellers.
That's right. So here's the other thing. So if you're selling and then going to buy again, right? Which most people do, right? For most of our lives, unless you're a first-time buyer, there's no sale attached to that. Or unless you're selling to then go retire somewhere, maybe.
Yep.
Maybe there's not a buy attached to that, or if there is, maybe it's in another state. But for all those moves throughout our 30s, 40s, 50s, even into the 60s, there's usually a buy and then a sell, whether it's a move up or maybe a move down.
That's right.
Well, I can tell you the stress involved in a sell-buy scenario for the last few years during the spring and the summer was bonkers, right?
Very tough.
I have a perfect record of not leaving anyone homeless.
That's good.
But it's extremely hard, right? And we're having conversations always about what can we do with the financing? Can we find a way to get them
That's
so
right.
where they're not contingent on that sale. But most people are contingent on the sale. And that is a tough place to be in because all your competition for buyers a lot of them are non-contingent. Well, winter can be great because you can still get a great price for your house.
Yeah.
And then when you go to buy, there's a few less people out there for you to compete with. And you could probably make that buy sell a little bit smoother in the winter.
Well, and I think there's also one very specific thing you might comment on, the leading and lag,
Yeah.
right? What you're doing today represents what into the future?
Well, yeah, 30 to 60 days, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, well, and so that's a big piece. So I know you know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So what's the month of the year that home buyers can typically get the best deal on a house?
Well, I would say if they're really thinking through it, is to take the best price before the holidays and close it after the holidays.
See, that's a smart answer, right? So if you don't think about it, the data will show you that January is the month where buyers get the most off the list price, right?
Right.
So I have a lot
for the close.
Right, correct. That's the catch, right? So a lot of buyers will say to me, we're going to hit the ground running January 2nd.
Oh boy.
Because we, holidays are such hassle, and we got to go to my mom's house and my stepdad's in Ohio and or whatever, right? It's like they're all kind of busy, and we'll get back out there in January, and it's great, right? Because January is when people get deals. Well, January is when people close deals.
That's not when they get the deal.
Which means they got the deal. It's the middle of November. They got the deal right now.
That's right.
Right.
And they're closing after the holidays.
That's right. So if you're of the mindset, hey, it's been a tough year and we missed out on some homes and it's been hard to find things, now don't give up now. Now is when you want to really be looking hard. Now is when you want to try to find maybe those sellers that have been on the market for a little bit longer.
That's right.
I'm looking personally for buyers. I'm looking at sellers that canceled or expired towards the end of the summer, right? Because they got discouraged. They were on the market during the spring and the summer. Maybe they were overpriced and they didn't sell. And now it's like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I know we're a few months after, right? Still want to sell?
Yeah. And I think the thing people forget too, it's a great time to buy more time. Because if you're in the middle of the summer or spring, people want to, we're selling 30 days. Let's set up the closing day.
Yeah.
You're going to get more time for yourself.
That's right.
Buying in November, knowing you can close January 15th because people want the stretch.
That's right.
So that's also a very good thing that's never spoken about.
No, that's true. And that's a great point for buyers who I had this conversation last week with a couple who said, well, we probably want to buy in March.
Yeah.
Or, it's like our lease is up this date.
Yeah, right.
And I'm going, well, if we wait till January, February, things are going to get really crazy. And then you're going to be competing. If we go buy something now or in December, you can probably ask for a 60 or a 75-day close.
That's right.
And they don't care.
No, because they encourage it.
Because they kind of want the holiday too, right? And all that. And then now we're not in any trouble. You're still closing the same time you would have, but you didn't have all the competition out there.
And you probably got it for 1 or 2% cheaper.
That's right. All right. So last thing I want to touch on with you, and that is interest rates, right?
Okay.
It's you can't be on my podcast without us talking about interest rates.
Yes. Okay.
So I'll ask you any what's in the winds, any kind of thoughts, any big news out of the Fed, anything that
no. I think we're in an adjustment period right now. What I mean by that is that as the market slows, meaning you're already seeing us a little bit in real estate, and we'll start to see it both economically. The slowing of the market would suggest that more people will probably start to see lower interest rates at some point. Now, as crazy as the last 15 years has been with the ups and downs and swings of every possible thing you could possibly imagine, it's very hard to predict when that will happen.
That's right.
But it would be very, very, I think a couple things are going to happen. I think we're likely to see the 6 to 6.5%, probably more in the 6.5% area. But if you think about it, depending on the day, that can be anywhere from 1 to 1.5% lower than it is today, depending on the day, right?
Right.
And I think the other thing that is encouraging with all of this is that patience is needed right now.
Yeah.
The conversation we just had talking about why it's so important to create opportunity for yourself now through maybe even February is important to have that conversation, because once interest rates do drop, what do you think is going to happen to the market again?
It's going to go absolutely bananas.
You're going to light a match again.
Oh, yeah.
And all the buyers are going to come out of the woodwork. You have the sellers coming back. All of a sudden, this is going to start happening, and people will go, well, I'm just going to wait and do that then.
Yeah.
Well, don't do that necessarily.
Yeah. That's where we're going to see, when I say, okay, we had some towns 2%, that's where we're going to see a rapid appreciation again, because prices are going to start going bonkers.
And you're going to see, everybody needs to get used to seeing the upswings and the downswings, and the upswings and the downswings, just because we're so overweighted in the buyer area.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think the other thing people need to get used to is we have a new norm.
Yeah.
And the new norm is forever long. And we can get into 50-year averages, 60-year averages, all that kind of stuff. But you take away literally the subsidizing of the government buying down mortgage rates and bonds for the last 12 13 years, we would have statistically seen yourself somewhere between 5.5% and 7% through that entire period of time.
Absolutely.
So I think that people have gotten comfortable with the idea of seeing the lower interest rate being 6 to 6.5. So one of the greatest things that did happen is we had to run up the interest rates so everybody could see what could actually happen.
Yeah. And
it's going to pull back to some more stability in the 6s.
And I'll even throw a little bit of possible doom and gloom in there, just because I want to make a point.
Okay.
So I agree with you. I mean, that's the feel I get. We did have the ramp up to above 8 even.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We've settled back down into the 7s, and I see things probably going the way you're saying it as well. But I'll bring this up. We were talking about this before. So in 1971, rates, I think they started out in the 7s, but they had gone up to about the 9s some point during that year. And if you were staring at a 9% interest rate, which today, if we were to say 9%, people would lose their minds, right? Oh my gosh, the sky is falling. At that time, if you had said what so many buyers are saying right now, and I'm not making fun of them, I'm just trying to give them perspective of, I'm going to wait till these rates come down, right? If you had said that in 1971, you would have waited until Jim Kelly was in the Super Bowl for the second, third time, however many times he went to the Super Bowl and didn't win it. 1993, okay. I think I have my dates right. Maybe it was Troy Aikman. I don't know. But anyway, 1993, 22 years for the rate to fall back below that 9% rate. I mean, they shot up to, I don't even remember the historic high.
Over 18 in 1981, 82.
And so, but what did home values do during that time? They increased by almost fivefold, almost 500%. So if you had missed out, I mean, obviously, I don't think anybody was hopefully dumb enough to not buy for 22 years. But my point is, don't count on the rates going down. I think they probably will, but don't count on it. Get in the game now, because to your point, if they do go down in whenever, sometime next year, it's going to get crazy.
Well,
and then you can refinance.
And as they go down, you're going to create greater affordability anyway. So if you can afford the house now, then if that's the house you love, you should buy it.
Yeah.
Because when it does come down, it's just going to create more affordability for you.
And it's a good point you bring up there too, right? Because I get it. Like, I don't want people watching this, listening to this, to feel that there's no compassion. I understand that.
It's total compassion.
A year and a half, 2 years ago, you're sitting to yourself going, boy, I can afford a $500,000 house.
Right.
That's awesome. And today for the same payment, maybe it's $400,000 house or $375,000 house or whatever. And so that's like, wow, that's hard. I get that. Right. But you got to buy what you can afford.
Right.
And then as appreciation comes, as rates come down eventually, you can refinance, you can pour into your home, invest into your home to increase your equity into it, increase its value. And if you play the long game, just like the stock market, right? Don't look at things in a 1 to 2 year burst. Look at things over a 20, 30 year period, including home ownership.
That's right.
You'll win every time.
Yes. Yep. And I think the one thing I would add to the end of that is just remember, when you're buying a $500,000 house, just remember eventually you're going to have a $500,000 tax bill.
Yeah.
Right. Because just remember that taxes have not moved a lot over the last few years, being reassessed.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make it clear to everybody is that remember that over the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see tax assessments going up. Just so you know, who brings out the first tax bill of the year? Cook County.
Yeah.
went up 13%.
Yeah,
Highest it went in 30 years.
Yeah, that was a big shock.
So, and I say that to everybody not to scare anybody, but there is that idea you have to remember what you're buying is that too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. You're right. I mean, this is an assessment year for most of the counties.
It is.
And you're right. Cook was jarring to a lot of folks.
Right. Well, and it's jarring all over the country.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some areas of the country were very hot where they sell tax bills go up 51%.
Yeah.
So just, again, this is about being mindful to everybody's needs. And I think that's a need that people really need to think about when they are buying a house, that by talking to you, they can understand that what the possibility can be, because there's always caps on things like that.
Yeah.
But know that taxes are not just going to come down.
No, no, I wish they did. Definitely not here.
Nor is the cost of eggs. They're all going up.
That's right. Well, hey, man, I think we covered it all today.
Yes, I think we did. We had a good job today.
Absolutely. So, hey, again, if you guys have any questions, you're wondering, again, we talked about kind of a broad Naperville, western suburbs. But if you're living in Lombard or in Tinley Park and you have questions about your house, about your buying situation, please feel free to get a hold of myself and Todd at any time. We'd be happy to walk you through, because again, it is hyper local. It is super specific. And looking forward to speaking with you. And Todd, see you next month.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.